Hello everyone, welcome back to another Magic the Gathering Arena video. My name is Elite Largo, and today this video is going to be tailor-made for new players. So, reason why is I actually had a friend of mine reach out to me, and he had been watching some of my videos, but he's never played the game before, and he said it would be cool if you did a video outlining basically how the game is played, getting into specifics. It would be better to have on your channel about how to play the game and how it works. That way, any new viewers who maybe are interested in the game but have never played before and don't know what's going on, they could watch this video and they could get up to speed on things a little bit, and then they wouldn't have such a hard time actually playing the game when they first start out. Even though Magic the Gathering Arena does have a tutorial when you first open the game and start, it is nice to have additional videos that you can kind of look into and just see additional things, maybe some things that the tutorial doesn't cover all the way. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and play a few games with just some basic decks, nothing too fancy. I may do another video where I get into some more technical decks that require a little bit more strategy and when to do certain things, when to let certain things pass, stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm going to try and stick with some basic mechanics. Now, I know the state of the game right now, especially for people who have been playing for a while, is extremely convoluted right now. With the release of Ikoria, there's just so much going on as far as new mechanics that the game is kind of like really on the outer reaches of what Magic is at its core. So there's a lot of things going on that I guess for getting into the game now, it's actually probably more beneficial for new players. Maybe. I mean, you can make a case for both. Anyway, I'm just going to try and keep it simple and just play some simple decks that have just some simple strategies and have some new cards splashed into it as well. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. So we're going to go ahead. No face cam today, mainly because I want the entire screen to be open, even if my big ugly face takes up a small portion of the screen with my webcam. I decided it's probably best just to record without a face cam and just go voiceover. So let's go ahead and get into some games. And I will play probably the most basic you can go, mono red. So let's go ahead and get into some ranked mono red. I may lose a lot of games, but I'm gonna take extra time to explain each step in all of these matches. So this may be a longer video, but this is, like I said, tailor-made for new players and viewers who are new to the game of Magic. Okay, so when you first look at this hand, you draw 7 cards, and what you're really looking for is land and things you can do with said land in your opening hand. A lot of times, especially in decks like this, which is all about speed and low casting cost things, you want to look at, okay, what can I do immediately with 1 or 2 lands? Well, with this hand, not a whole lot. So if you look at this and you think, well, I want to play something, I want to be a little bit faster, and you don't want to keep your 7, you can mulligan. Now, it even tells you right here that you will return 1 card to the bottom of your library. So what happens is you draw another 7 cards, but you have to return 1 to the bottom of the library. This hand is also not as good, so that we're off to a bad start. Each time you mulligan, you have to return an additional card. So we're going to mulligan, and we're just going to keep this. We have 3 lands. We have some things we can do. So we're going to have to return 2 cards. I'm going to return Momentum Rumbler and probably a Flame Spill. So we'll keep the 5. Generally, what you want to do is you want to return cards to the bottom of your library that you either can't play or may not have as much effect. So for me, I'll take the 3 lands, and I'll explain this in a minute why I kept these 2. So we'll go done. We'll let our opponent choose what they want to do. I think they've already decided. All right. So Terramander is a really good 1-drop. Not as good as when it first came out, but it's still solid. 1 blue, it's a 1/1 flying. Now, adapt 4 means you put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. It even tells you right here in the side screen here what each ability does. So, but the adaptability costs 1 less to activate for each instant or sorcery card in that person's graveyard. So it's a pretty good 1-drop. So what we'll do is we'll start out with our land, and that's all we can do. Now, the reason why I kept these Bone Crusher Giants is because they have this new mechanic called Adventure, which means it has a spell attached to it. So you can play that spell, which you can see right here is only, well, it's only one and one red, and damage can't be prevented, and you can deal 2 damage to any target, which means you can kill a creature. So with what we're looking at right here, we may just do that. Now against blue, typically you want to wait until the opponent's turn to sometimes cast some of these removal spells. But since we're playing against blue, we want to avoid any kind of interruption. Blue plays a lot of interaction cards, response cards, counter spells. So we're just going to go ahead and take the liberty and knock out the Pteramander. So real quick, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I'm not really good at explaining the game, but I'm doing my best. The creatures here you see, the 2 numbers in the bottom right is power and toughness from left to right. So power is 2, toughness is 1. So basically it deals 2 damage, but it can only take 1 damage. Same with this and this. You can kind of get the hang of it there. That's another adventure card. You can see for 3 mana they can counter a spell with mana cost 3 or less. Converted just means total mana cost of the card. It doesn't matter about colors or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and play the Bone Crusher Giant. Well, we're going to attempt to. And so that's what I'm talking about. Blue plays a lot of counter spells. So everything you cast out that's a non-land card is considered a spell. And this right here, you can counter any spell, which means it just goes straight to the graveyard. And then Surveil 1 means you look at the top card of your library, and you can either keep it on top or you can put it into your graveyard. All right, so now we're up to 4 lands. We don't have a lot going on in this hand right now. And also, I should have mentioned this in the very beginning. Each player starts with 20 life, obviously. So, all right, we will try and stomp the Pteramander again. They do have mana open, so they could have a counter spell. All right, so they let it go. I guess you could have made an argument that I could have. Brazen Borrower, okay. So Brazen Borrower is actually a really good card for blue. So it's a 3/1 flash. Flash means if it's a creature or some other kind of spell, flash means you can play it anytime you can play an instant. So it's a 3/1. It's a flying, so creatures without flying can't block it, or unless they have another ability called Reach. I can get into that later. But Brazen Borrower can only block creatures with flying. Now its adventure is... Alright, so we're probably going to get countered here. But its adventure card is Petty Theft. And it's 2 mana, it's 1 and a blue. Yeah, so... We are pretty much locked out of the game at this point. Well, they are down to 1 card in hand, but the way we're going, we're probably going to lose. I mean, I'll try and get a creature down. Okay. So we're not going to attack. This has haste, which means it can attack the moment it comes into the battlefield. Now again, I'm going all over the place. Creatures, because I'm trying to keep up with the playing of the game as well. But when creatures enter the battlefield, unless they have haste, they can't attack when they first come onto the battlefield. They have what's called Summoning Sickness. So we're going to try and take out the Brazen Borrower. And they have an unsummon, so it goes back to our hand, which means they probably have a counter spell, but it doesn't really matter because we're probably just going to lose. Okay, so we are at 2 life, or 3 life rather. Yeah, that's gonna be game. That's another flash card, by the way. So mono blue, very, very annoying to play against if you don't get a fast start. So we'll play this one again because that was really a god awful, unnatural mulligan to 5 cards in hand. So we will try this again. Okay, so this is a little bit better. Even though we only have 2 mana, we can actually play some stuff in the early game. So real quick, so Scorch Spitter is probably one of the better, best 1-drops. One of the better 1-drop like budget cards for 1 red mana, you get a 1/1, but whenever it attacks, it automatically deals a damage to a player or a planeswalker. Now, planeswalkers, when we see them, I'll explain them. But they're like pretty powerful, mostly powerful cards that really do impact the state of the game. So, and naturally, we're against another blue player, so we will drop the Scorch Spitter, hopefully. I was going to say, I don't think there are any 1-mana counter spells that affect us. Ah, so is this a cycling deck? Jeskai cycling is pretty powerful. Oh, anyway. So, okay, this might be ramp. So that's an instant spell there that's really powerful called Growth Spiral. For a green and a blue, you draw a card, and you may play an additional land from your hand, or put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So that's another basic of the game. You can only play 1 land per turn, unless otherwise stated by a card that you play or have on the battlefield or whatnot. But essentially, you are only allowed to play 1 land per turn. All right, cool. We draw our 3rd land. That is very, very important here. So since we have 3 Phoenixes, I think I'm going to try and land an Anax. I think that's the right play. So, Steamkin. Okay, Frilled Mystic, of course. So this might be Flash, I don't know. So I'm not going to attack. I'm just going to hang back. So this card, 2 green, 2 blue, Flash. It's a creature, so you can play it anytime you can play an instant. When it enters the battlefield, you may counter a target spell. So it's a counter spell on top of being a creature. And it has 3 power, which is very good. So we're just going to take 3 here. Okay, so we draw another Steamkin. Alright, we're going to try and play a Phoenix here. Trigger. They have another Frilled Mystic. Of course they do. So it's really unfortunate that we're playing against 2 control decks. And this one is honestly the more annoying of control. Okay, this is a new card, so I need to read it. Whenever you cycle a card, you may pay 1 when you do exile target artifact creature you control, then return to the battle. Oh my god. Alright, I know what they're going to do. They're pretty much going to cycle, pay 1, exile Frilled Mystic, and just counter everything I have forever. So in that case, I might block just to kill 1. Because I really don't want to have to... Dealing with that is just... Oh, it's like maximum annoyance. So... Alright, first let's attack. Let's get some damage through. So this is a very interesting combo that they have. I know they're going to do it, so I'm going to go ahead and play something just so you can see it. They may decide not to, but I doubt they will. Like, I doubt they won't do it. Okay, so here they go. So now, okay, there is a lot going on right now. So basically what they're doing is so basically what they just did is that they cycled a card. Now cycling means you may pay the cycling cost to discard this card and draw a card. Now what this does is whenever you cycle a card, you can pay an additional 1 mana. When you do, exile target artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its control. So they targeted Frilled Mystic, it bounced. It basically what's called flicker. They just flickered in and out, and then they were able to re-counter my spell. So essentially, we're not going to be able to play anything because they're just going to counter everything I have forever. So we'll try, but But I guarantee you they just, okay, they can just have another Frilled Mystic. That's cool too. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and concede because we're not going to win this. Alright, so we'll switch it up a little bit. Like I said, this game is all over the place. We'll play a little more competitive deck. I haven't seen a lot of mono red recently because just recently it just has been getting, at least in my experience, as you can tell, it's just stomped by everything. So, alright, so mono white is really simple. It's kind of like mono red. It's just aggro, a lot of really cool stuff here. So so we go first. We'll play Alseid. So Alseid is what's known as an enchantment creature. So this is fairly new in Magic within the last few years. Enchantments count as both an enchantment and a creature. So obviously we're going to play Healer's Hawk. Now both these creatures have a ability what's called lifelink. Whenever this creature deals damage to anything, basically it gains that much life, like as much life as the power of the card. So 1 power equals 1 life with lifelink. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So if I had, like, say a 2 power lifelinker, I would gain 2 life. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and play Heliod. Now, this is a really interesting creature. Well, enchantment creature. Does this have reach? I can't remember. No, it doesn't. So we're able to give... Alright. So Heliod is an enchantment. He's indestructible. He's a 5/5. Now, Devotion is how many white mana symbols you have. Like, Devotion to white is how many white mana symbols you have on the battlefield. And then whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature or enchantment you control, and then you can pay 2, a 1 and a 1. I'm not gonna block. I'll just take this. You can pay 2 mana, and let's see, pay 2 mana, and you can give a creature lifelink until end of turn. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and Banishing Light this card here. Now, I know you saw this card off in the side over here. I'll explain that in a minute. That's another new concept. I'm going to go ahead and attack for 2 rather. Put another +1 counter on Healer's Hawk. Say go. So, but as soon as you hit 5 Devotion, 5 white mana symbols, and he includes himself, he becomes a creature, and he's indestructible, which means destroy effects do not work on him. He has to be exiled. And that's a specific removal type. That's what Banishing Light does. So Banishing Light is an enchantment. It's 2 and a white, so 3 converted mana cost. And when it enters the battlefield, you exile a non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. So we're just going to take 2. No need to block. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and play Impassioned Orator. Actually, you know what? We're going to play Eidolon of Obstruction. He's a little bit better. This activates Heliod. So he's a 2/1 first strike. He's also an enchantment creature. So we're going to go ahead and just attack with Heliod and Healer's Hawk. They're going to block there. That's fine. Take 3. I'm actually going to put the counter over here on the Eidolon. And we'll say go. I'm going to keep Alseid open. Because of its ability, you could pay 1 and sack it and give a creature or enchantment protection from a color. Ooh, okay, Omnath, that's a problem. Deals damage to any target with a number of elemental controls. Alright. So they're going to try and kill Healer's Hawk, I presume. So we're going to go ahead and activate. We're going to target this. Since it's a multicolored card, we can pick any of its colors. So let me make sure I have it. Okay, green, blue, or red. So we're just going to say green. Alright, and we get a replacement, which is very nice. So we're going to go ahead and play Alseid, reactivate Heliod. So yeah, when your Devotion disappears, he goes back to being an enchantment. And we'll play Impassioned Orator. We'll go to next. We have 1 mana open for Alseid. We'll attack for 11. Omnath also has another ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield that under their control, they put a +1/+1 counter on an elemental, and then if they control 8 or more lands, they draw a card. So who are they blocking exactly? Alright, I don't know why they're double blocking, because he's indestructible. But, okay. I don't think they read the fine print. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's indestructible, Bubba. Sorry about that. All right. So they realize they messed up, and it's pretty much game at that point. Plus, we had a replacement Heliod. So the reason why I didn't play the other one, let me make that real quick. This is pretty important. Heliod is what's known as a legendary card. All legendary cards, you can only have one copy on the battlefield at a time. If you happen to play one, some people do this with planeswalkers. If you happen to play, like, because all planeswalkers are legendary, if you play a legendary, the same legendary card, so say you have one on the battlefield and you play the same one, you have to choose which one you want to keep and you have to sacrifice the other. So people sometimes do that with planeswalkers. Say if they activate an ability that lowers their loyalty counters. Again, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, and then they play another one just like it, and then they play the same one and they sack the one that they just used. They can use the new one's loyalty counters. It's a little confusing to explain. Let's see. I'll go ahead and play a deck that has planeswalkers in it, I guess. We'll do this one. So this is a different style of deck. This is what's known as a control deck. Basically, kind of like the blue-green deck we played against earlier, and the blue deck we played against earlier. So they try and control the game. So this has a lot of interactions. Okay, I forgot about this. So this is a new concept. This is brand new. So companion is a new concept. Companion cards have these prerequisites. So companion, your starting deck contains at least 20 cards more than the minimum deck size. So for standard, it's another thing I forgot. All standard decks, like in all playable decks, have to have a minimum of 60 cards. So for you to play this as your companion, you have to have 20 more of that, at least. So 80. And if you do that, you can play this chosen companion once from outside the game, which is insane. It's really insane. This is a good hand. We'll keep this. So there's a lot of different types of lands in this, which is really important. So we'll start with this one. So this is a dual land, so it can tap for a blue or a red. And when it enters the battlefield tapped, when it does, you scry 1, which means you get to look at the top card of your library, and you can keep it there, or you can put it to the bottom. So this is Narset, Planeswalker. So each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. You can -2 to look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you can reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it in your hand, and the rest of the bottom of your library at a random order. It's a -2. She starts with 5, and yeah. So 1 colorless, 2 blue mana, very good. Especially in this kind of a deck, they're going to be wanting to draw cards. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and I'm going to I don't think we need to shock in. So this is what's called a shock land. You can pay 2 life to have it come in the battlefield untapped, or you can just have it enter tapped, but it also taps for a white or a blue. So we'll have it enter the battlefield tapped. We don't really need to have, I don't think we need to have Dovin's Veto open. Yeah, that's fine. So this is a special type of enchantment card. Like I said, there's a lot to know about this game right now. So this is what's called a saga. So it's an enchantment, and it enters the battlefield with a lore counter on it. So 1 lore counter, you search your library for basic planes, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. 2 lore counters, you get a 0/4 wall creature with defender. Basically, it's just a big blocker. And then the 3rd saga, you gain 2 life, and once it reaches the 3rd saga, you sacrifice it. So we get another land. I would like to play Narset, so I'm going to play the island, so I make sure I can play Narset. So this only allows them to draw one card each turn. So we'll go ahead and we'll activate our ability, -2. So 3 lands, so we can only take Outlaw's Merriment. This is pretty much the win con of the deck. I've been meaning to change that. I have 3 of Outlaw's Merriment and 3 of another enchantment. I'm probably going to cut down to 2 of each and play a really powerful creature card. Okay, they're going to Banishing Light on Narset. That's fine. Alright, so now that we have 3 mana open, we have both our counter spells active. I'm going to go ahead and take my time here. So I'm going to set up my draw. These scry lands are very good for setting up your draw. 2, 4, 6. I don't think we need 7 lands just yet, so we can put this to the bottom and hope we draw something better than a land card. So we're going to go ahead and say go. So Dovin's Veto is very powerful. It's a white and a blue. It can't be countered. There are cards that cannot be countered, which makes them very powerful. And then this is also a counter spell. So it can't be countered, and you can counter target non-creature spells. So any spell that's not a creature, you can counter it, and they can't counter it back. Okay, they pass back to us. We get a Shatter the Sky, which is very good. We're going to go ahead and play the... this. Now, this is another new land. This is what's called a Triome. They're all called something Triome. So it counts as an island, a mountain, and a plains, which is very relevant. Comes into the battlefield tapped, and it can produce one of 3 colors, in this case blue, red, or white. It also has the cycling ability. You can pay 3, cycle it, and draw a card, and you can cycle it any time. So we're going to go ahead and pass. Let me go ahead and go over these 2 spells. So Outlaw's Merriment is an enchantment, and at the beginning of your upkeep, which is right before your draw step, you randomly create either a 3/1 red-white human warrior creature token with trample and haste. Haste means they can attack the turn they come out. Trample means, say it's a 3/1, so say they block with a 1/1, 2 damage will trample over that 1 toughness and hit the player. So that's what trample does. It tramples over toughness. The other one is create a 2/1 red-white human cleric with lifelink and haste, and then the other one is a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and then when it comes into the battlefield, it deals 1 to any target. So we're going to go ahead and play this tapped rather, and we're going to say go because I want to be able to have mana open to counter something that they do. So these 2 decks that are the deck I'm facing right now is similar to what we're playing. It's a control deck, same colors, only it centers around this card and another very absurd card in my opinion. So they're looking to play Yorion, I guess, maybe, but I think they're also holding mana open to counterspell us. So I guess the question is, I know what they're waiting for us to do. I know they're waiting for us to play something because the combo in this deck is very specific, and I know they have that card in their hand. Okay, Whirlwind of Thought. So we're going to go ahead and Dovin's Veto that. Alright, so we get another land. We'll go ahead and play Outlaw's Merriment. So now we have 3 mana open, so we can play Absorb or Dovin's Veto. Depending on what they play. Banishing Light, eh? Do we want to use... That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Because I know what the combo is to this deck, and I'm not getting too worried about having to Banishing Light on Outlaw's Merriment. I'm not too worried about that. I guess now is the time to play Chandra. So Chandra is very good. We're going to give them an emblem. So she's another spell that can't be countered. So if you +2, she starts with 6 loyalty. So her +2 is each opponent gets an emblem whenever they, on their upkeep, they take 1 damage, and you can keep adding those emblems on. It's not just a one-time thing. They could get like 5, and they could take 5 each upkeep. Her -3, Elspeth Conquers Death, we're going to counter that. Okay, we have Shatter the Sky. We're going to go ahead and +2 again, give them another emblem. We're going to play Outlaw's Merriment. We have Absorb open. She's at 10 loyalty, so they're going to take 2. We also have recurring creatures on the battlefield. So I'm really hoping we didn't overstep here. I had to counter that Elspeth Conquers Death. I had to. Okay, they're shocking in. Okay, this is desperation, so no, we're going to absorb that. Alright, so we're kind of... So let's go ahead and -4. We'll scry. We will keep that. That is a very powerful planeswalker. So we're going to go ahead and hit for 3. They're going to take another 2. So right now we're kind of exposed. We used all of our counter spells, but they have really expended a lot of resources trying to clear the board. Alright. Fair enough. We'll Teferi. I thought about possibly Banishing Light, but they're still taking 2 from these emblems, which is going to add up. So yeah, even if Chandra leaves the battlefield, they still keep those emblems. Unfortunately, we only have 2 board wipes. They have another Shatter or Banishing Light, which is kind of annoying. So now we're kind of in the waiting game here. It's only a matter of time. So because of these Banishing Lights, I'm pretty sure I was correct in not countering them, but it is kind of annoying. So. Alright, Divine Visitation doesn't do anything for us right now, but we will attempt to play it. Okay, we'll say go, and hopefully this isn't a good game. They are still taking 2 from these emblems, which is very important. So Shatter the Sky is a sorcery. Now sorceries you can only play on your turn, on your main phase. Alright, that's a problem. And each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, and then you destroy all creatures. So it's a really good board wipe. This is probably the most annoying enchantment I've ever seen in my entire life, and it's also the most absurd as far as card design. So yes, I call it Sharknado because I refuse to call it anything else, because this is just a meme at this point. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. It also has the cycling ability, and then when you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX. Basically, X is the however much additional mana they want to pay. So, yeah. Needless to say, this card is stupid. For multiple reasons. So they're still taking 2. This will probably be the last game. I don't want this video to go on too long. I hope I probably jumped around a lot, and I do apologize for that, but it's not every day I make a video and try and explain Magic to somebody who has never played or seen or done anything with Magic. Alright, so they get a... Yeah, that's wonderful. They get a 6/6. I mean, it doesn't matter. So Omen of the Sea is a really good enchantment. It's a 2 mana enchantment that has flash, so you can play it anytime you can with an instant. When Omen of the Sea enters the battlefield, scry 2, then draw a card. So it doesn't matter. I want both of these, so I'm going to draw one of them right now, and then the next one on my next turn. So we'll go by turn. So let's see. We're going to play Teferi. They don't have any... So you can bounce. So his -3 is return up to 1 artifact, creature, enchantment to its owner's hand. I'm going to bounce this creature because tokens, if you bounce a token, it dies because it can't go back to its owner's hand because it's not an actual card. So it just dies. We draw an additional spell. We'll play Narset. We'll activate her ability. We'll grab Chandra, and we'll say go. So they take another 2 damage. I'm not too worried about anything else at this point. Conclave Tribunal, sure. So they get 2 4/4s. They're going to take something. Narset, that's fine. So they can draw additional cards if they choose, that's fine. Sure. Alright. So, our turn. Let's go ahead and sack this. Scry 2. Hold on. Let me take a look at the lands real quick. I want us to make sure we have 10 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We do. Okay. So that means we can play both Shatter the Sky and Chandra. So we'll plus. Play Shatter the Sky. Unfortunately, they draw a card, but I'm not too worried about that. We'll play Chandra. And that's the game. We get our first win on camera trying to explain how to play Magic. That was a really good game, though. So now you see how a grind of a Magic game is. So a lot of times when you're playing Control, you want to build up your mana, and you kind of just want to interact with whatever your opponent is doing. And at least that's my philosophy. So that's what I like to do. I like to play defensive. Obviously, you play defensive when you play Control, but sometimes I'm a little bit more defensive than some Control players. I don't like tapping out when I have counter spells in my hand, and then once I start building up a large mana pool, in layman's terms, a large amount of lands on the battlefield, that's when I like to start playing certain spells while keeping some mana open for a counter spell. So that's basically the strategy there. And you got to see there, Planeswalkers can be very, very powerful. One thing I did not mention about Teferi, which was that blue-white Planeswalker I had. Let me go to my collection real quick. Well, let me just open up the deck. It'll be a lot faster. His global ability. So basically, I didn't really do a good job of explaining his abilities. So his global ability is each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. Now, sorceries, like I explained, can only be cast on your turn, and like basically during your main phase and stuff like that. So you can't cast them at any time. So you can only cast them on your turn and in certain sections of your turn, I guess, is the best way to explain it. So they can't. So since they were playing a type of Control as well, if they had counter spells, they can't play counter spells because they can't play instant. They can't play instants basically. They can only play them as a sorcery though. And then their +1, his +1 is until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, which means you can cast sorcery spells as if they were instants. So that means if I wanted to, I could cast, if I +1, I could cast Shatter the Sky as an instant if I wanted to. But you have to have them on the field, and you have to have +1 in order to do that. Now again, his -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, and then you draw a card. It's very, very useful, especially in that match you saw right there. You can bounce a token and it dies. And sometimes bouncing like a big creature is actually really beneficial because that means the opponent has to spend however much mana they just spent to cast it again. And then Chandra, you can see she's a very good win condition. So her -3 is, because I know I talked about the -2, which ultimately won us the game. Her -3 is Chandra deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. So that's very important to remember, because as you saw, we played elementals with the mono white deck. And I lied. We did win with the mono white deck, so this win wasn't our first win, so my apologies. And then her last ability is a -X. So basically you remove however many loyalty counters from her, and she deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. Now, the most important part about this is that if that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, you exile it instead. And that's very important for some creatures, because there's a lot of ways to get creatures back from the graveyard. So exiling is very good. Divine Visitation, so you didn't get to see this card in action, but if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, you would create a 4/4 you would create that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance. Now vigilance, as you can see here on the screen, attacking doesn't cause a creature with vigilance to tap. So basically tapping means turning sideways, as you saw in the game. So when a creature is tapped, they can't block. Some creatures have abilities that cause them to tap. They can't activate those abilities because they're already tapped. And so vigilance is very, very good. Flying, of course, is an evasion from other creatures. Only creatures with reach and flying can block them. So yeah. So that's really that's as much as I'm going to get into. If you want more videos like this explaining how the game works, just let me know in the comments down below. If you want more mechanics explained in a more in-depth detail, also let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the way back, or way out rather, and I'll see you all in the next video.